Welcome back, MTG Joe here, and we're here for another weekly installment of the meta breakdown, top decks in each respective format. This particular week we are looking at Standard for our first video, and this is about a little bit more than a week from the last ban and restricted announcement. For those of you catching the video for the first time, what we try to do each week is do a breakdown based on untapped GG data. It's a companion tool that runs alongside Arena, tracks your win rates, loss rates, collection, suggests decks. It's free to get started with it. The link is in the description down below. Very helpful tool to kind of run alongside your Arena if you want to get started. Like I said, it's in the video description. I will be pasting some of the deck lists as well that we cover in the video description, so you can easily import those to Arena. So what we try to do is look at kind of the top performing decks on the Arena ladder for both best of 1 and best of 3. If you're looking for Alchemy or Historic, those will be separate videos that come out in about a day's time. But you could always follow the playlist and then just kind of see whatever the most up-to-date for the format you're interested in is. So getting started, we are looking at starting with Standard best of 1, January 29th until February 5th. So the bans happened on the 27th. I didn't really see much of a change. Actually, we can take a look. It looks like it's just slight variations, but maybe we'll do for this one, we'll do the 27th to now, so a little bit longer. So officially from the day of bans. Actually, I think I like this because the first few days people are playing Brews. This is a little bit more of a normalized meta. And this is kind of where we play around. We can see like when we switch between the two, we add 20,000 game sample size. Over here, we're looking at Platinum and Mythic rank, mainly just because it feels like once you start getting to that threshold, it's kind of more competitive decks as opposed to people playing more janky style brews or just whatever cards they have. So 100,000 games over the course of a week. The top performing deck is kind of surprising in a way, just because I expected with the presence of Meat Hook decks and just Blood on the Snow, but Mono White Aggro has regained its form as one of the top decks in the format, and we're seeing it kind of in two ways: in Naya Humans list, or just a Naya Aggro, and Mono White Aggro. This Naya list is basically Mono White with splashes for Helena and Elena, as well as Snakeskin Veil and one Showdown. Really what you're kind of losing is the consistency of the mana and creature lands to some extent, but you're still squeezing them in for the ability to get like Helena, which just pumps up the squad, and some protection spells. But with this Mono White deck, basically with Mono White, you kind of have two forms. You have the 1-drop aggro in the form, so like Hopeful Initiate, or you have kind of the Exile-based version with Stonebinder's Familiar. Most of the lists seem to be going to Hopeful Initiate just because it does have the ability to scale on any creature attacking with it. You could put counters on it or other creatures, which just naturally comes with the deck when you have things like Luminarch Aspirant to pump up the team. And with this here, it lets you destroy artifacts or enchantments. So if we see like a resolved Meat Hook for the life gain or the life loss, Essica's Chariot, any of the classes like Paladin or Ranger's class, so certain things like that, it can be used in that regard. The flip side of Edgar when it comes back as artifact. So pretty useful there. You got the Ushers, Intrepid Adversaries, Luminarch, a couple copies of Sungold, some Thalias. Notably, you just kind of want to see what the split is that they're playing week to week in the 3-drop slot. Mono White, kind of the biggest variation. There's so many 3-drops that are playable cards, but it's really what they settle on. So they're opting this week for a 2-3 split between the Brutal Cathars and Skyclave Apparitions. We've seen these numbers vary from time to time. When it was heavier on Izzet decks, Brutal Cathar is better into Izzet just because it's still a playable card on the flip side as a 3 power pay life to kind of kill card, where the Apparitions just, it is what it is, 3 mana 2/2 bear. With the presence of all the black base sweeper big mana decks, kind of the ramp pile, stuff like that, we're seeing more copies of Elite Spellbinder being played, and we kind of go back to the Reidane package. We've seen sometimes these numbers dwindle in lieu of things like Maul the Skyclave, just varied cards that kind of play in that spot. When the meta is a little bit more creature heavy, you usually see some reduction in the Elite Spellbinders and some more increased in terms of the 3-drop exile effects. A couple Paladin class, and then 1 Legion Angel to fetch up. Notably with the mana base, you see that they're off Snowlands and then instead playing the Cave of the Frost Dragon with the ban of Faceless Haven, there's really no benefit in mono white. Mono green still plays the Snowlands for Blizzard Brawl. If you're on mono white, you should just get off the Snowlands, just because it does make you slightly worse with the Reidane in mirrors, because Reidane will cause the Snowlands to come into play tapped. So moving on, we have like the Naya Humans. Like I said, you see a lot of the same cards coming out, just a couple differences in terms of the 1-drop slots between Chaplain Elms, Battlefield Raptor. So it's a little bit bigger on the curve. I do think 4 Reidane's a little heavy. It is legendary. Personally, if I'd be playing between these two decks, I'd probably just go with the mono white. Just the appeal of all your lands coming to play untapped at all times. You're not potentially getting screwed, and it just seems more linear and proactive, which in Best of One is generally where you want to be, either hyper interactive or very proactive. We see Selesnya Humans, another deck that's fairly similar in terms of its core. A bunch of humans that kind of pump up. You get Katilda to put counters on your team if you have mana sink, or just ramp you by making all your humans tap for mana. This is a heavy on Adeline deck, but you also have stuff like Hamlet Vanguard to get really buffy. You could also go wide with Torens, Fist of the Angels, and then some copies of Sigarda, as well as card advantage and an Anthem. This deck has less removal. If we look at the mono white deck, it's really just the Brutal Cathars and then the Kabira Takedown, which is reliant on having some coordination with, sorry, some weird noise on my street. Had someone yelling, and now someone's honking their horn like it's no tomorrow. The joys of recording in the city. Kabira Takedown does require you to have an existing board state for it to be removal. So if you're top decking it and you just came from a sweeper, it might not do much. We're going to have Orzhov Control piles. And what we're seeing with a lot of these Orzhov decks is they've actually started to migrate off of Blood on the Snow and just become more of an interactive deck. So there's this one version that plays like Adeline in the main. There's some that play the 4-drop vampire that flips, not Edgar. What's it called? I'll show you in a sec. The 1/3 that turns to 4/3 lifelinker. So this one basically is some combination of like Sorin, Lolth, some of them are on Kaya's. You have the Deadly Dispute, Shambling Ghast, Eye Twitch combo, and then they're kind of filling in on the edges. Some are on Edgar, some are not. You're seeing a lot of Rite of Oblivion, 2-mana Answer with Exile. Orzhov right now is giving you some of the best removal in the format in terms of Vanishing Verse and Rite of Oblivion. Meat Hook Massacre is just a bomb, and then Wedding Announcement just really kind of provides you the fodder to kind of string together the game. It's an Anthem effect late to kind of go from there. Without Blood on the Snow, we're seeing the mana base kind of pivot. There's some of these versions are going Mardu, basically just to splash the backside of Tibalt as well. I've been liking, I'll show you the version I'm playing. I haven't played too many games with it this week, but I've liked a variation of the Orzhov deck. Again, we're seeing some mono white, very similar in terms of its structure. Usually, yes, this is just on snow mana. So this is where I'm saying, like, you're just at a clear disadvantage. You're playing snow mana, but you get no benefit of it. And then in the mirror, we're seeing slightly lower percentage points that you're probably losing mirror matches or just coming in. If a turn 3 Reidane could kind of screw up your turn 3 play. Mono Green Stompy, we played it on the channel this week. Played a version very similar to this. I just played 3 Uvenwald. I like the haste out of it, but I found it kind of weak into the Blood on the Snow decks and like the Orzhov decks. You don't have much trample except for these, but Vanishing Verse is just everywhere right now, and you get chump blocked a lot. The Chariot also just gets chump blocked, and then it's hard to kind of catch up from there. Your things can get to 4 toughness oftentimes, but unless you have like a good roll with like a Ranger's class that just goes unchecked without Vanishing Verse, found it a little lackluster right now. You do still get the like when your Blizzard's Brawl kind of come out, like when you could go like turn 2 pack leader, Blizzard Brawl something, and potentially draw a card, it kind of snowballs. But the games where you didn't have like the exact Blizzard Brawl hands felt kind of bad against Orzhov. We see Boros Aggro, just another variation. So basically what we're seeing is a lot of these white-based aggro decks potentially splash a color. This one's from Crows from a tournament, the PTQ qualifier. It's going up to Gold Span. You have some Angel Fire Ignition. I think this deck's better suited in best of 3 where he played it. In best of 1 because we're seeing a lot of like mono white aggro. I actually started recording this for a video and stopped after 2 games against mono white just because you're playing no 1-drops, so your opponent's getting on the board, especially on the play a lot earlier. I found that it wasn't as effective because you don't really have removal in terms of catch-up. This one's kind of more of a combo-y version with like Shijiri Shell to protect your gold span, stuff like that. But I was finding that like you're always kind of a turn or 2 behind and you're playing catch-up too much without the tools to really play catch-up. And you can see like with Untapped, we played it 5 days ago. Naya Humans again, and then we see some variations of Orzhov Control. We have like this one's with Edgar, we see the Scorpion, we have some Clerics, then we have some Izzet Control here. Just kind of Izzet pile, the variation that it is. I think this deck's probably better in best of 3. This is actually a deck that, so I think CGB, this is his version perhaps, but I think some version of Azoria's Control could actually be pretty well positioned. Just Sunset Reverie does a good job against the aggro decks. You could still turn 3 Doomscar if they don't have Thalia. While you do have the tax, you can get out of the zone. I don't think you want to be on 3 Hullbreaker Horrors necessarily. What I would be playing right now is Devastating Mastery. Given so many decks are including Planeswalkers now, enchantments, artifacts, stuff like that, Mastery on curve, or like even at 6 mana, is pretty devastating, pun intended. Even if you have to student cost it to return something back, it's still a good play on 4. This is probably where I would try out. I don't know if you want to be on the 4 Sod Cummings necessarily. And I'd probably play some copies of Fading Hope just to let you interact earlier with some of their stuff. But I think that would be somewhere where I would look to start off with in terms of a deck. I think there's some opportunities there, and then we're kind of in the dumpster tier. If we look to like something I found interesting, so from Platinum to Gold, we get 60,000 more games, but we're seeing just in Gold rank, we're seeing a lot more of the Orzhov Control deck. So it seems to be a lot more popular at that rank there. And we're seeing like this version here where I'm mentioning with the Tybalt. I found Tybalt's really good in these Orzhov mirrors, just in terms of grinding card advantage. I think you do want to be on 4 Vanishing Verse in this format, mono white, mono green. Even the threats out of like Izzet and stuff, Goldspan Dragon and stuff like that, everything gets hit by Verse. The Exile is also super relevant. So just another consideration of what you want to be looking at. That one's at 61% win rate. I'll show you the Orzhov and then we'll jump to best of 3. So this is like the tracker version. You can see like my win rate, stuff like that. You can see where I just fell apart last month. I was like top 1200 and then just kind of could not string wings together. Haven't played much this go around. 4-1. I did punt a game. Actually, no. The one I lost, I mulled to 4. This with this list. But this version here, very similar to what we just saw there. You got the Eye Twitch, Shambling Gas, Deadly Dispute. Just more interaction, I find. So some Infernal Grasps. We do have the Valky in here. It's actually interesting. I said we need to be on that, and then I'm not actually in practice playing. I would switch the Infernal Grasp to 4th Verse. Again, it just hits so much of the format right now. The only thing you're really missing out on is Helena and Elena, which isn't seeing tons of play. I'm actually trying out 1 Reidane in this mid-range pile. It's good in the mirror. It's slowing down your opponent. The shield side could also be relevant at times. So this has been working out pretty well. Wedding Announcement, Soren, some Edgars. Lulth, 1 Kaya, also Miria's Call in there just as kind of some more value lands. But I've liked this deck here. The only thing I lost to is the mirror where I mulled to 4 after 5 games. Not a large sample size nonetheless, but kind of gives you an idea. Like there's a lot of... the core of these black-white decks is very similar. I'm 1-1 in the mirror, and this is against the snow version. I would need to do a bigger sample size. Is this version better in the mirror? Is it worse? Blood on the Snow does let them kind of get recursive value. what we might want to try out. So like if Reidane's not working, then we might want to try out Graveyard Trespassers, just a way to eat at their graveyard. But there's kind of considerations here, and the more exile-based removal you have in the mirror helps out, because then their Blood on the Snow, just if they're getting back an Eye Twitch versus like a Lulth, it's just not as effective. There are 3 squirrels outside my window just going ham and just like fighting each other. Today's an interesting day of filming. So kind of moving over to best of 3. What we see, I actually had to go from the 27th and then gold to mythic, and we look at the population size. Like I can't even go to platinum just to get like a huge representative size. So 10,000 versus 100,000 games, and we're doing 2 days shorter in best of 1. So best of 1 continues to be the more popular format on Arena. But if we look at best of 3, we see Orzhov Control. This was, I believe, Kirky's version where he's trying out the Welcoming Vampire. One thing that I noticed from his stream when he was playing this deck was with the fact that Wedding Announcement serves as an anthem, it actually nullifies the draw because it's power 2 or less. So once you get kind of your second announcement flipped, or just some of these other creatures, they start getting too large to actually trigger the vampire. So I think this is a little bit early in the format, something to try out. But again, just the core of this deck, the Rite of Oblivions, Vanishing Verse, all have a lot of value to kind of play around with it. We see Naya Aggro, so this is just kind of the best of 3 version. What I'll probably do is with these decks that have ports to best of 3 versions, like the Naya Aggro, stuff like that, I'll just post the best of 3 version. You can pull it for best of 1, and then you can also have the option of the sideboard if you want to play. We see Izzet Spells. This deck will generally do better in best of 3 just because you can tailor specific answers for the matchups. So if we're, say, bringing it up against aggro deck, you could bring in your other Cinderclasm, you could bring in Burning Hands, you could bring down Burn in the House, another Fading Hope. If you're playing against a control deck, Mirror, Blood on the Snow style decks, you have Disdainful Stroke, which is really well positioned right now again. It's kind of odd because it's either absolutely terrible playing against mono white, or the best card you can want against these Orzhov piles. But you see like the inclusion of counter magic, some more card draw for the grindier games. You get access to Lier for the grindier matchups. A deck you see more in best of 3 is kind of these Jund piles. So they're the treasure decks to some extent, going up to like Goldspan Dragon. You have access to Helena Elena, Immersturm Predator, Florian for card advantage. And then these versions here are playing Path of Peril to deal with the early game. You can, off the treasure, create white mana for the cleave cost, but then you're just seeing like Infernal Grasp. A Braid is actually a card that will probably see a big uptick in play with the new set coming out. And the reason for this is there's a lot of vehicles, artifacts, synergies like that. So even something like Devastating Mastery hitting all those is another card that we should be on the lookout for with Neon Destiny. And this one's basically, so it's a Rakdos deck. You're splashing for Alana and Elena and Esika's Chariot kind of for value. With the mana base and standard and the treasures, it's not too hard to do so. You see another version here, just kind of like slight variations. Outland Liberators, this one's on the Jaspera Magda, so more explosive opportunities for turn 3 Goldspan. I would say this one's probably more resilient, like Immersturm Predator is a beast when you have sack fodder. This version's also on Rangers class. I think in a meta with so many Vanishing Verse, like these multicolor threats are actually very impactful, just not getting hit by Verse. Stuff like Rangers class, even Chariot to some extent with so much Verse, loses some of its feasibility. We also see a bunch of variations of mono green. It seems like a lot of folks are playing mono green. We just haven't played enough of a sample size. You have some Gruul aggros and kind of just coming along the line. This is kind of the first Blood on the Snow variant. I think even if we go down, I don't like going down further than gold just because it's the quality of the representative data, like win rate, stuff like that. It's kind of skewed just because then you're going for either just folks who don't play a lot and just don't care about rank, or like play quality might be lower. I want to get more of a representative sample. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the week. Like I said, I do these weekly. This one will be for standard. We'll do one for alchemy and historic as well. And then each of those are there. If you do have any kind of suggestions, decks that you think should be here and aren't up yet, stuff like that, what's working for you, drop a comment. And as always, if you can, it's greatly appreciated if you could drop a like, comment, and subscribe. All are free and easy ways to help out the channel. Appreciate it if you can. Otherwise, keep safe out there, and we will catch you next time.